Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our session today on supplier diversity, how to start, scale, or enhance a program that works for your company. I'm Julie Granger. I'm the Executive Vice President for the MMAC, the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce. And supporting the wealth creation of diverse businesses is one of three pathways that the MMAC is pursuing to reduce racial disparities and increase economic equity in our community. We have a lot of information to cover today and some outstanding speakers, and about 80 attendees were expected on the call. So I will quickly turn it over to my colleague, Corey Joe. Corey Joe Biddle is our VP of Community Affairs and Executive Director of Fuel Milwaukee. To get us started, Corey Joe.
Thanks, Julie. So as Julie said, today's discussion is all about supplier diversity and the benefits it brings to companies and the communities. We're going to explore history and the value of supplier diversity, while also getting into just scratching the surface of the best practices for those who are looking to start or refine their supplier diversity programs. So no matter where you are or your company is on the journey, you can leverage your procurement activities to drive racial equity and economic growth for the Milwaukee region. So we have a lot to cover in 60 minutes, so I won't delay in introducing our panelists. I know some of you pull out your cell phones and do screenshots, so I'll give you my panelist link with their titles and photos. There we go. Okay, pull out those phones and snap. First up, Ralph Moore. Ralph is recognized as one of the world's foremost thought leaders in supplier diversity and minority business development. He established his consulting practice, RGMA, more than 40 years ago, and his 5 levels of supplier diversity maturity model is recognized as the gold standard for benchmarking supplier diversity initiatives. Of course, we'll be talking to Ralph and we'll hear a little bit more about that gold standard as we get into the program. Next up, Heather Olsen. Heather is the president and CEO of the North Central Minority Supplier Development Council. The council advances business opportunities for certified MBEs and connects them to corporate members. Thanks for being here, Heather. We also have Reggie Layton. Reggie is the Vice President of Supplier Diversity and Supply Chain Sustainability at Johnson Controls International. Reggie helps his company create and implement policies and processes to maximize diversity purchasing performance and exceed customer expectations. So get in the comments and help me welcome the panelists. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to launch the poll here now that we have a little interaction for you as we get started. There we go. As we're preparing for the conversation. So we'll set up the discussion by giving the speakers, our panelists, an idea of who's on the call today. So respond to these 2 poll questions that popped up on your screen and answer from the perspective of the company you're here representing today. And can you all see the responses live right now? Are they on your screens? Okay, when the polling has ended, I'll share them and you should be able to see. All right, we're about halfway there. 20 more seconds. All right. 2 more seconds, 75%. Get in there. Okay, in polling, and I will share the results. The results should be on your screen now. Can you see? Okay, about 45% of the companies that responded identified as small companies, 34% mid-size, and 21% large companies. In terms of how our participants would classify their supplier diversity activities, over half said they don't have a supplier diversity program yet, but would like to develop one. 41% said we have a program, but would like to enhance it. Sorry. I hope you guys can hear my neighbors outside. Our program is well developed and established, and we're looking to better track and evaluate outcomes. That's about 7%. Okay. So to the panelists, does that give you a good idea of who's on the call here?
Yep.
All right, now let's get into the discussion. Ralph, I'm gonna start with you. I want you to talk to us a little bit about, we were really excited to start this conversation with you. People told us you can't move forward. They told Julie and I, you can't move forward without talking to Ralph. Tell us why you were excited to hear about us. I just want to get your response to why you were excited to hear about what we were doing, why you wanted to be involved, and then we'll hop into the panelist questions.
Well, it's interesting, making Milwaukee the region of choice. I think they can, that's a great mission, a great purpose. And we feel that small business, and again, you have a very vibrant business community, both mid-sized, small, and large businesses. And we feel supplier diversity plays a critical role in all three of those components. And frankly, if in fact Milwaukee can demonstrate that they can lead in the supplier diversity implementation, I think it will become the region of choice as we look at the changing demographics in America.
Thank you so much. We were so, listen, you've been a joy and a wealth of information. It's been amazing to get connected to you,
Well,
and we're excited to have MMAC participants. So MMAC participants are folks who are here for the call. Just make sure that you put your questions, because you're going to start having questions right away. Put them in the Q&A section, so it'll be easy for me to find them at the end of the discussion. But don't hesitate to go into the chat if you have any comments or ideas, or you're inspired by anything that you hear. Make sure that you indicate whether or not you want your comment to go just to the panelists or to the entire participant group, everybody on the call. Okay, so let's get into this. Reggie, the first question is for you. Talk to us a little bit about the history of supplier diversity programs. You shared a great documentary with us that we shared with everybody on the call. How did the supplier diversity programs start? Why did they start? Why did those pioneering companies believe that procurement could be a tool for racial equity? Just kind of give us a little bit of that historical background.
So companies got involved in supplier diversities, like what was shown in the documentary, in the 60s. And the automotive and telecommunication industries really led the way in this. They recognized that you can't have democracy for part of the United States, nor can you have people afford to buy their products and services, whether it's an automobile or pay the phone bill, if folks can't get employed. And so they huddled together, and I think it was in Chicago where they decided to have the first trade show, as we would know it, where what is now, AT&T, but it was the Bell system back then, led a group with other corporations to have people buy products and services from minority-owned companies. And then they began to expand it throughout their industry. And I remember, right after I got out of college, I began to hear about this, and I was living in Detroit. So I heard what the big three were doing and how they were engaging their 3,000 prime suppliers to make parts of the automobile. And that set the ball rolling in those two industries for other industries like banking, consumer products, to begin to engage minority and women-owned companies. And a lot of those tier ones, like Johnson Controls, we supplied to the GM, Fords, and Chryslers of the world, began to discover accidentally that this is not only the right thing to do, but this is the economic smart thing to do, because you're helping to exceed your customers' expectations. So there was a whole cross-sectional group of tier one suppliers that also began to embrace supplier diversity and cascade it to other industries.
This is a question that I didn't send to you all before, but we talked a little bit about it when we just in our conversations preparing for this discussion. When I was reading about the pioneering companies of the first supplier diversity programs, Reggie, I had mentioned that it was part of the narrative was that these were started purely altruistic reasons, and because it was the right thing to do. And I was kind of excited by that, because I thought, oh, wow, it's not about the business case for supplier diversity. It's because it's the right thing to do. But there are a lot of different reasons why companies actually thought this was important. That may have been part of it. But I'm thinking about this climate that we're in now, and a lot of the companies on the call don't have programs, and they're thinking, or they're aware of the importance of programs because of reasons that might be socially conscious and that aren't necessarily tied to their acceleration of procurement and performance. I think people are becoming more aware for different reasons. What is your reaction to that, and why that's important, and if it will be able to sustain companies as they're launching these programs? Anybody can react to that. Reggie, you can start.
Well, I can only speak from Johnson Controls perspective. For us, I mean, yes, racial equity is important, right? But the thing that moved the needle for Johnson Controls was when our customers said, look, we expect 5% of the sales that you do with us to be from minority companies. And then when they said, if you do these projects, we will reward you what over time ended up being $6.3 billion in business, because we did deals with minority companies, got everybody's attention and began to embrace it. But Ralph has been on the front lines of this. He can tell you why companies are doing this or see it as doable, right? It's not as hard as it appears.
Well, thanks, Reggie. And let me just add, it started out as a social conversation back in the 1960s, but it's evolved quickly into not just a thing or something, a strategy that will help you do business with your key customers, but they're also finding now that there are thousands of brilliant minority CEOs running great companies that bring value to the company. And there's another very strong benefit for privately held smaller companies. I saw we have a number of smaller companies. When you see this reckoning on race and things that are happening within America, you might find a partner who has greater access to a Fortune 500 or Forbes 2000 company than you do. And now there's a joint venture or partnership with a minority partner that will allow you to expand the growth of your company. And the ultimate benefit, when you get to be my age and you're ready to retire, that minority partner also becomes your exit strategy if you want to sell your business. So there's a lot of benefits right here in Milwaukee, expanding supplier diversity.
Thank you. So as a follow, go ahead. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so I'll tie a bow around that, because I was just looking at some research. So I looked at a Hackett Group study that was just done, 2018. So I guess that's not as recent, but I believe it was 74% said that corporate social responsibility was now the #1 driving factor. So although, Corey, to your question, yes, the business case can be made and it should be made. I believe organizations can show like 10 to 15% of revenue directly tied back to their supplier diversity program. So there is a business case, no doubt, and Ralph is definitely bringing up the key points. Supplier diversity brings innovation into the supply chain. It drives down costs. It creates better value for the customer or for your company. But corporate social responsibility is critical, and I think we're seeing that more and more rise, per what your question was at the beginning there.
So Heather, I'll stick with you on this one. This is kind of the flip side, where we're looking at the minority businesses. So what is the impact that supplier diversity? I mean, Reggie kind of threw out that big number. That's a lot of impact for the minority businesses. But from your perspective, you work with these companies. What's the benefit to them, and what more could be accomplished with more employers starting supplier diversity programs?
Yeah. So, we started with wealth creation, job creation. I mean, that is the mantra that we go back to. And the impact, present day impact, our affiliate of the National Minority Supplier Development Council covers a 5-state region. And right now, the aggregate revenue reported present day by the MBEs in our 5-state region is $3.8 billion. So you say, what more could be done? More contracts could be let. We could have more opportunities for MBEs and grow that aggregate revenue, because what does that aggregate revenue relate back to? It's job creation. Right now, the MBEs in our region, minority business enterprises, have 18,747 employees. And of those, 8,483 are diverse employees. So that is a 45% diverse employee rate. And so as we look at our communities and the diversification of our communities, we want to see that employment growth, and the multiplier effect of getting diverse suppliers into the supply chains is a very important way that companies, and that's why we're having this region of choice discussion and trying to bring supplier diversity into the equation. It's a very important aspect to get more people to work and grow the tax base.
Heather, if I might add, you might also tag on to that bullet point that 55% of non-minority employees, they're benefiting too. So I think there's a false notion that, well, we're just, these programs are just to make a few Black guys rich. No, the whole community benefits, and not just minority employees, but also the community itself, because now you're creating role models. We sit on civic boards, we write checks to the YMCA. It makes a stronger business environment, and then the cycle continues. It grows, it continues to grow. So again, I'm excited about it. It's my life's work. I better be excited about it. But the reality is, when you have great professionals like Reggie and Heather leading the way, we can only win.
Ralph, I was looking at your comment on our LinkedIn post, on MMAC's LinkedIn post. We posted an ad about this event to encourage people to attend. You had a pretty cool comment on there. It made me laugh, but the point of our post was to highlight reasons why
I understand
companies do this, and there was a study, we posted it, but Ralph said no, let me tell you what the real benefit is. Can you share, Ralph, what you said in the comments, and just talk a little bit about that?
Well, again, the issue is, yes, the social conversation is important, but if you're going to sustain your program, the reality is you want a great supplier. And what I said on the LinkedIn post was, you might start this for corporate social responsibility, but the real benefit is shareholder value. And in a privately held company, those shareholders are family members. Those shareholders are people you know. And if we can elevate the value of your company by bringing great minority suppliers to the table as partners, as suppliers, everybody wins. The economy grows, as well as the entire business environment is now on an uptick. It's a positive thing for everyone.
Thank you. Heather, I'll come back to you. There's a lot of folks on this call who are just completely new, and this is like 101 level supplier diversity for folks, and I can hear them thinking, how do you get in touch with the suppliers? How do you contact them? Well, this is kind of your world and your realm. So can you give us an idea of how many minority business entities operate in the Milwaukee region, and how can companies start to connect with them? Like, how do you even start?
Yeah, and I'll echo back to something Reggie said, where it's not too hard to do this. So setting up a supplier diversity program, you need to obviously have workshops like this and expertise that comes from people in the space like Reggie and Ralph, but we wouldn't want it to sound daunting. I mean, this can be done by companies of all sides to set up a supplier diversity program and process. And in our region, so we cover 5 states. In the greater Milwaukee area right now, we have 79 certified MBEs. And of course, we're always looking to grow. We always are looking to add an MBE. And for those that might be newer to the space, an MBE is a company that is at least 51% managed, owned, and controlled by an ethnic minority party or parties. So our space is the ethnic minority certification space. We obviously have advocacy partners out there. WeBank, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, they look for 51% women-owned, veterans, LGBTQ, the NGLCC. Similar, the NMSDC started the certification process and was the founder, but the other certification processes came behind and are very similar. So when companies are listening to this and to your question, how do you meet the businesses? Are the businesses out there? So right now, just to give you kind of a scope of industries, I mentioned the ones that we have in the greater Milwaukee area. In Southeast Wisconsin, 16 certified firms right now. Statewide in Wisconsin, 120. And once again, that's not the ceiling. That's where we're at today. We're always looking to grow and add and discover those diverse businesses to be certified. And certainly if companies have businesses currently in their supply chains that are not certified, that's something we can help companies do if they have that discovery. But industries that are covered: advertising, automotive, consumer products, financial services, food and beverage, healthcare, manufacturing, petrochemical, energy, professional services, technology, transportation, retail, it goes on. So I guess also the other key thing, and I'll pause here to let others answer on this one, but we have industries from everything soup to nuts covered by the companies we have certified. And we have size from those that are just starting in business to right now in Wisconsin, we have over 6 businesses that are doing over 50 million that are certified with us.
Wow.
So
anybody else want to chime in? Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, this is real important work, right? Because as Ralph said, diverse companies tend to hire diverse employees. To far greater extent, than non-diverse companies. So this is an additional economic boost for a particular community, right? Not just minority community, but for the whole community. Why? Because those companies pay wages and salaries. Now those households can afford to buy consumer products. They pay taxes. They have insurance. They give to charities and churches, and so the whole community thrives, right? And so Johnson Controls likes to see that happen, because if people are thriving in the community, their buildings can be supported. That's school districts, that's churches, that's hospitals, and that means they're going to buy Johnson Controls equipment, and they're going to be buying the equipment and products and services of our customers. So it's a win-win-win-win-win for everybody.
As a tag team question between Heather and Reginald, like regionally, what are the support groups, affiliations, memberships that we should probably mention early on for companies that are thinking, I want to get into this, but who should I be looking at? Who should I be Googling to be a part of or to support our efforts?
So I'll say it for Heather, the North Central Minority Supplier Development Council.
Thank you.
Okay, right. And the North Central Council is part of a national organization called the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And these groups, whether locally or nationally, certify that a company is owned, operated, and controlled by ethnic minorities. That being said, they should also consider joining the Women Business Enterprise National Council if there are women-owned business, and the council that does that is in the Chicago area, WeBank Central, and WeBank is headquartered in Washington, D.C., and they work just like MSPC. There's a desk audit and a site visit to make sure that their corporate members are working with authentic, diverse-owned companies.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You're a real pal. Thanks for that. Go ahead, Heather.
I appreciate that. Yes. And so I guess for those that are in the webinar here that are diverse businesses and are not yet certified, that's the direction to go. For those that are on the call that are looking for help starting or growing their supplier diversity programs and processes, that's also the direction to go. So the North Central MSDC, along with the advocacy partners mentioned by Reggie, that's our role. We're here to do the certification, and we're here to provide that support structure and referral for those companies that are trying to grow their programs, whether that's meeting MBEs and or peer-to-peer support. A lot of times the role of our organizations is putting buying companies with buying companies together to discuss how to do things in best practices.
And if I may add, for the minority businesses that are attending this webinar, what we're also saying is you need to join the chamber, the Milwaukee MMAC. I don't have the acronym.
Metro Milwaukee Association of Commerce.
There we go. Because the reality is business is all about relationships. So many of us who start these minority businesses, we go to the NMSCC conference. We know everybody. You know, I've gone to the last 37 conferences. Okay, I know everybody in the room, but that's just the minority business community and those who are already engaged in NMSCC. I need to come to meetings like this where I can meet those other businesses and develop those first name relationships where I can expand my business. And I think overall, again, I give Julie Granger a lot of credit for leading the Milwaukee Chamber and allowing us to have this conversation, because there are 500 chambers around the country. And if we can have the collaboration between the local chamber, the regional NMSCC council, and minority businesses, I think there's a lot of synergy that's going to take us well into the 21st century.
That's wonderful. I can't wait to get to the section where we have you and Reggie present about the tools that you have to offer. And there's some actually pretty interesting questions. There's 2 of them right now in the Q&A. I expect that we'll have more. I think we'll get to those questions. So if you all have questions, the participants, I see your questions, we're going to get to them. I think they would be better served for me to ask them after you see the next portion of this webinar. I have one more sort of level setting question. I know that this is a concern for a lot of companies, some of the smaller companies that are saying, our spend isn't, we don't have billions, we don't have millions. And they're wondering if it matters, if they can have an impact, if they have a smaller spend, and what that impact might be. Just any encouragement or reactions or ideas, things that you've seen that would be helpful for people in that space.
Who wants to start? I can start.
Please.
Yeah, you go.
Okay. So first of all, we see a lot of success, diverse business to diverse business, MB to MBE. So I wouldn't say that there would be any size parameters that should be put around it. If someone's buying something, there's an opportunity to buy something from a diverse owned, or in our case, an MBE business. And so, and it's the going back to what Ralph said, relationships. It's the building of relationships and looking at those other companies to get into your supply chains, whether you're a small company or a large company.
Yep. Other thoughts?
One quick conversation, quick comment. The other part of this is legacy. When I've spoken to really thousands of business owners over the years, and one of the things, especially in the smaller businesses, you have either a family member, first generation, second generation, even third generation, who there is a legacy of their business, of their craft, or their trade, and to partner, bring in minority businesses, you're expanding your legacy. And if it's craft, if it's a printing company or whatever it might be, here's someone who wants to be in your same business, and there's no greater compliment to say, hey, show me what you know, and let's see if we can work together. And there's some great stories that come out of this. But again, the bottom line in business is profits, is growth, is shareholder value. That's what it's about, regardless of size.
Perfect. I want to give a shout out to the Business Council and Marjorie Rucker, who is on our call today. I just posted their website and she posted her email address. So if we have any minority business owners on the call, the Business Council is a great resource to help you scale and grow and also connect to potential spending companies. So with that, I'm going to transition over to the presentation section, which is going to be led by Ralph and Reggie. So I encourage all the participants, continue to put your questions in the Q&A section. We will definitely get to them. We'll have time towards the end of the conversation. So I will give the floor to Reginald and Ralph.
Okay. Let me get to the presentation. Okay. Hopefully you can see that on your screen.
Looks good.
Okay. And what we want to talk about, again, leveraging the RGMA 5 levels digital assessment tool to advance supplier diversity within MMAC. And we've already talked about the reasons and how it could be beneficial, but we want to get a bit more technical. And we've already had the introduction. So I just want to touch on this slide briefly. I've been blessed in many ways. And you can see we work with companies coast to coast. We had a great project with Harley Davidson here in town, York, Pennsylvania, training buyers. So we've done a lot of different things, but it all comes back to how do we advance minority business, but really not advance minority business as a standalone, but how do we integrate the whole issue of supplier diversity into corporate strategy and nonprofit strategy. I know there's a number of nonprofits on the call, in the meeting. So our approach is, what is supplier diversity? And we've had many people misstate this. Well, it's affirmative action. Oh, it's something you got to do for the government. No, it's the integration of exceptional diverse suppliers, contractors, service providers, and business partners into the development and execution of your corporate strategy. So we don't want you to make this a social program. Give to the United Way, give to the YMCA. I know the Y's on the call. I give them another shout out. If you just want to make a social contribution, write the YMCA a check. But if you want to build your business, do business with great minority suppliers who can help you grow your business. That's supplier diversity. Many years ago, 1994, we created the RGMA 5 levels. It goes from early stage supplier diversity program, level 1. I won't even talk about level 0. We don't have time to talk about people who just don't care about supplier diversity. So level 1 is early stage supplier diversity program. Level 2, compliance focused supplier diversity program. And level 3 is your traditional supplier diversity program. And notice the terminology. These are programs. And what you have with companies at these levels, they're more transactional. And many times the early stage company really has the most promise because they're trying to figure out what should we do. And hopefully if I can get their ear, we can convince them to focus on being level 4, level 5. Level 2 are those companies who just want to check the box and say, okay, we have our customer report is in. So Reggie is making us do this. So, okay, Reggie, are you happy now? And what Reggie's trying to say to them is, no, are you happy now? Because you're now working with some great suppliers you weren't working with before. And at level 3, you have all the components of a company who really wants to do the right thing. But at level 3, what's the missing ingredient is budget and senior level engagement. And usually the two go together. Without senior engagement, you don't get budget. And unless senior engagements, senior leaders see the value proposition that makes sense to them, they don't get involved. And notice the terminology changes to advanced business diversity strategy. This is now where it's a much more strategic approach to supplier diversity. How does it impact sales? How does it impact strategic sourcing? And then world-class, how does it impact community? The whole cycle. And we look at it, the value proposition having 4 components. And first and foremost, it must contribute to operational excellence. And this is why I cringe when I hear people saying, well, we have a special program for minority businesses. Well, you might have a special intake or a special outreach, but once they become part of your supply chain or part of your value chain, you want them to be part of your business. Don't put an asterisk next to the minority firm. They're only here because we have to have them. No, they're here because they're good business people and they bring value. And you want to be able to measure that. The second point, strengthening your corporate brand with key stakeholders. Looking at the demographics in America, it won't be long before America is going to be majority minority. It might not be important to you, but it might be important to your customer. It becomes part of your strategy where you can look at how do you build your brand and in fact help your customer build their brand. And the tie-in, the link to that is also the compliance requirements with the government and with your customers, but you don't lead with that. You lead with operational excellence. And then also, it complements your commitment to racial equity, community transformation, and frankly, if you're going to be a good corporate citizen, this is something you should do, but do it because it's going to help you grow your business at the same time. So let me turn over to Reggie on the question of, why bother? Why are we doing this? Reggie?
The why bother question is on everybody's mind, and they're many times afraid to say it. And JCI discovered these reasons accidentally. Our first reason is it expands our business. And there are 4 components to this business driver, right? First, it increases sales. And we discovered that if we offer our customers a portfolio of diverse suppliers to work on our project, they give us the business. And then when they give us the business, we discovered that having diverse suppliers as part of our team to install our products and services actually creates a barrier to entry against our competitors. Our customers are less likely to switch to another corporation if Johnson Controls is providing technology and our portfolio of diverse suppliers are installing those products and services that's benefiting the community, right? And then we discovered along the way that while we're doing this, we should report this to capital market indices. And it actually enhanced our sustainability image, right? Because not only are they looking at Johnson Controls stock price, they're looking if Johnson Controls is investing in communities to make sure those revenues are sustainable. So that was a byproduct of us doing business with diverse suppliers. And then by having a portfolio of diverse suppliers already trained on how to work with Johnson Controls equipment and already satisfying our customer, it, as a byproduct, like Ralph said, increased compliance. So that expanded our revenue. Next slide, please. This is just going to summarize those points for you. Yep.
Next slide.
Yep.
Okay.
As I said at the beginning of the webinar, we received $6.3 billion in new business by offering a portfolio of diverse suppliers. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, you are a business to business or business to corporate company, what if your customers didn't ask for it? Even if our customers didn't ask for supplier diversity, we discovered it enhances our supply chain, right? How does it do that? Now, with our portfolio of diverse suppliers, we have more alternatives. Alternatives for what? Alternatives when we have our incumbent suppliers who have poor performance, they have poor quality, they want to charge us higher prices, they refuse to do business JCI's way, they don't have full service capability, meaning engineering, program management, and quality system support. And meanwhile, we have a whole portfolio of diverse suppliers who can offer all of these things and more. So we have more alternatives. Now, and also we discovered along the way, and notice this has nothing to do with revenue. This has to do with supply chain efficiency. We discovered along the way, we have more choices. There are more diverse suppliers than there ever were. Many of them are Fortune 500 trained, right? They worked in corporate America before starting their own businesses. And because of that, they have relationships with our customers and they can get us into places that our salespeople can't even get into. So we have more choices and alternatives, more alternatives. Then we discovered when we really did a deep dive into their product and service offering that they have innovation. I mean, one of the people who said they were going to be here, a accident here in Milwaukee. They provided a technology solution for the Milwaukee Bucks arena that the other suppliers didn't come up with. So we want to thank Abaxit for that. That was great. And because of this innovation, we have more flexibility, right? For when we're selling divisions, we had some diverse suppliers buy 2 of our JCI plants, or when we ask them to manage our tail spend, that spend is so small that it takes a lot of effort inside Johnson Controls to manage it. So we hire a lead supplier to do that. We have another local firm, Digigraded, that does that with our print suppliers. So we have more flexibility and our supply chain is more efficient because of it. So we found that as Ralph said, we shouldn't have a separate supplier diversity strategy. It has to be part of our corporate strategy. That's why our CEO, when he issued his statement to Wall Street back in January, said growing the number of minority firms in urban markets is part of our corporate strategy. And of course, that was well received by Wall Street after the George Floyd situation. Next slide, please.
I think I'm stuck. Wait a minute. There we go.
I just want to walk you through how the procurement strategy that involves diverse suppliers is part of the corporate strategy. Procurement is a service organization. They're experts in finding suppliers and working with suppliers, where the user groups, the departments, the plants at Johnson Controls are not, right? So our procurement team works with our business units, the user groups as we call them, to assess what are they trying to do, how can we save money, who are the potential suppliers in the world who could help them with that. So they assess the current situation. And because they have supplier diversity goals, when they assess the situation, they say to the user group, we could probably help JCI's corporate strategy by using diverse suppliers. So they assess the situation, they identify the opportunities, they share what these opportunities are with diverse suppliers. We have a monthly orientation session called Straight Talk, where we share what we're planning to buy, what's hot and what's not hot for Johnson Controls. Electrical, mechanical, contracting is always hot for us, just as a note. Then they write business plans on how they're going to solve these situations for these various business units, right? These are called procurement strategies, and the procurement strategies require sign off by my group. So they can't say, hey, we're going to lower costs in transportation or packaging or printing or whatever, and then go source whoever they want. No, they write the plan. We work with them to include diverse suppliers in the plan, and they have to meet a certain percentage of the spend that they're going to write in this strategy, and we sign off on it. And then they implement it. That makes it easy for us to engage both the user group and the procurement community on the capabilities of diverse suppliers because it's written into the plan. They request for quotation in the sourcing event and proposals. And of course, they're evaluating the best opportunity for Johnson Controls to save money or have a more efficient supply chain. The other thing, the last point is, and a lot of people don't know this about purchasing, after the procurement activity is done, it's purchasing who manages the development of the supplier. They have scorecards on suppliers. They make sure you get paid. They work with the user group on additional business. So they're evaluated on those transactions as well because they have a goal to meet diverse suppliers. That's how you have it integrated into all the purchasing activity.
Thank you, Reggie. And again, I'm the president of the Reggie Layton fan club, because he's one of the top professionals in the business. As you can tell, he brings a lot to the conversation. Just want to give you introduce you to the RGMA Digital Suite. We've created a platform, a digital platform to help companies start supplier diversity programs or advance existing supplier diversity programs. And what it does, it has a number of components, digital survey, digital assessment report, where you stand on the RGMA 5 levels. You get an e-workshop for your steering committee, and then the improvement journeys. This is where we again, we have a 42-year-old playbook where we have a lot of best practices, and from that playbook we will make recommendations based on your survey results on how to either start your program or enhance your existing program. We also provide consultation and email support. Beyond that, we also have online training for supplier diversity professionals, as well as online training for minority businesses, modules, where there's 12 modules right now, and we're going to build on that library based on supplier diversity best practices. And you can see the pricing there. And again, I'm not a salesman per se, but we think it's a great value for what it does. And let me just give you some additional information here. We'll see if this link works, and let me know if it's not working. Because this is the link to our website. Matter of fact, Corey has that link. Hopefully she'll be able to put it in the chat box. But what we developed, again, this personalized dashboard, confidential assessment, improvement journeys, on-demand training, and we love to schedule a demo and show you how it works, because it really, again, great value. It lets you get started and brings a lot to the whole conversation. And
we
please,
did the
Reggie.
assessment.
Mm-hmm.
We did the assessment.
Okay.
It took me maybe a half hour to answer all the questions. Now, of course, Johnson Controls has a level 4 program based on the assessment, right? But I would imagine if you were starting out, it might take you an hour to answer the questions. And there are all types of questions based on, like Ralph said, the playbook. And it's really neat. And you should visit this link, because it gives you a technical dashboard, right? And it shows you where you're strong and where you're weak, so that you could prioritize your efforts, right? And those improvement journeys, it was like they were reading my mail, right? They didn't know that RGMA didn't know that we had done a lot of mergers over the last couple of years, and there were certain departments that had weaknesses. It picked up on those departments, okay? So I would highly recommend this.
Thank you, Reggie. With that, that's the end of our slides. Now, is the discussion slide on the screen now or no?
It is.
Oh, okay. Well, it worked out. Thank you. But again, Corey, I really appreciate the opportunity to present and some of my thoughts and the new digital suite, and looking forward to this Q&A. Sounds like I'm just seeing a few of the questions come by. Sounds like you have a pretty lively audience out there.
I think so. Reggie is actually typing the answer, but I'll ask this question live and you all can respond to it. Where is there a recognizable ecosystem with MBE manufacturing firms, in particular in construction and manufacturing? Manufacturing.
So the answer that I was typing, I'll just hit the send button. For manufacturing, Michigan is a hub. I mean, it is for manufacturing MBEs. There are a lot of them there, primarily because of the automotive industry. And on the construction question, of course, Johnson Controls is in the construction industry, and that one is expansive throughout the United States. So it's construction is a local business. So they're all over the place. And that was one of the big differences that I noticed when I went from Johnson Controls in automotive, where I could easily get MBEs in manufacturing, to when I went to our buildings group here in Milwaukee, where we had to get MBEs from all over the country to serve local markets.
And I would say, Corey, to complement that, construction is an industry need across all industry sectors. And so we actually at our council level have been actively trying to recruit and certify more construction related MBE firms. And we also partner with the National Minority Association of NAMAC Wisconsin, National Association of Minority Contractors Wisconsin, and annually we do an event with them, a construction industry focused event, and that's on August 12th this year. So that's another good relationship building opportunity to meet construction related firms.
Okay, Heather, mention that again so they can write it down or Google it, or can they go to your site and the event?
Registration actually is up. Let me think if it's up live on our site. If they don't find it on their site, they can contact me directly and I'll send them the link. Registration is up and it's August 12th, and it's a partnership between the North Central Minority Supplier Development Council and NAMAC Wisconsin. And the whole focus is bringing in general contractors, construction managers, diverse businesses, DBE, MBE, other, and really create that business relationship building and networking and learn about the projects upcoming in our region.
That's perfect.
That's great.
Reggie was really good about going in and answering, typing an answer, but I'll raise some of the other questions just for the sake of discussion and see what other responses we have. Good question here. Aside from job creation, what are the other metrics that companies can use to measure impact of supplier diversity to the community? How can companies collect and report those metrics?
So some of the ones I listed were, of course, diverse spend, right? Count of diverse suppliers, sales that can be attributable to serving diverse markets. Those are just some of them. And Heather mentioned others. How many minority and women employees do you have? Those would be the ones I would recommend. And there are software packages that you can subscribe to that help you extract this information based on tax ID. So that's how you would track it.
And if I may, you want to take it to, if you take a big step back and look at the big picture. I'm an old Arthur Anderson CPA from 2 generations ago at this point, but they taught me to look at the big picture. And the big picture is look at the changing demographics. And it's not just, what's happening with voters and, all of that stuff. What's happening with consumers. And we've seen companies that have, matter of fact, we have a client that in the retail business that hired a major consulting firm just to do a customer analysis what's on the profitability of their customers. It turned out that African-American women were their most profitable customer. It shocked everybody, but then they realized, wait a minute, we need to cater to this group. And one of the ways we cater to this group is to include more women and African-American suppliers in our business. So they have a big, they did this a few years ago now, a big communication campaign about how they've opened up their, they're partnering with minority business people. So when you look at data, look at the data that impacts the customer, either your customers or the customers of your key customers. Now you're going to have much more of a business case to say, hey, this is going to impact our community this way, but it's going to position how we impact our customers in a broader way. And this is how you build your brand, because you have consumers like my daughter, and my daughter's 35. But you can imagine growing up in my house. She won't buy anything. She just bought. She's looking to buy a bike, and she beat the internet down looking for a black bicycle shop. Couldn't find one. Then she said, "Well, Dad, help me. Are there any black bicycle manufacturers?" Couldn't find any. So she said, "Okay, Dad, I just got to go where there's at least a black employee that can sell me the bike." So I'm just saying, this diversity piece, you want to look at data that will allow you to emphasize how you are servicing diverse communities, not just Black, but Black, Hispanic, all classifications, women. That makes a difference, and consumers like my daughter will do business with you before your competitor if you can show that.
And even there's the workforce component too, because I would venture, Ralph, your daughter would want to work for a company that has a supplier diversity program and cares about diverse suppliers in their supply chain.
No doubt about it. And the story I have there, we have a client, again, I can't tell you the name for confidentiality reasons. They offered a COO job to an African-American, and this is a Fortune 100 company, a 7-figure salary. He turned them down. This was 10 years ago. He turned them down. He said, I researched your supplier diversity program, and it's not at a level that I can lend my brand to. I can't put my name. I can't work for a company that doesn't have a strong supplier diversity program because of who I am in my community. And HR at that time in this company didn't even know they were in a different city than supplier diversity. That's how dysfunctional they were on their diversity strategy. Needless to say, that's become a very important part of their strategy since. Because just what Heather said, you want to retain talent. This is one way to do it.
Reggie, I was going to ask you, all of the success that JCI has had, how does that roll up to the storytelling about the talent brand, the employment brand, the brand that consumers and the companies you work with think of? Is that sort of a big push? How does that work?
Okay, so our communication strategy involves training new employees and training the buying teams, because we have 1,000 people in our purchasing department that sit all over the world, right? So we can't assume that they'll know the benefits of supplier diversity. And part of what we tell them is not only the cost, quality, and delivery benefits, but we tell them that their peer down the hall did a deal. So we have a monthly superstar announcement where we highlight those buyers that have done the supplier diversity deals or exceeded their goals early or stuff like that. If there's an external recognition, like from Minority Business News, we circulate that, and there's this thing called an applause award or something. We nominate folks for Johnson Controls employee awards. That's how we do it internally. But more so than that, the folklore, we have case studies that are on a internal Johnson Controls portal on deals that we've done. For example, I mentioned that printing company or that marketing company that manages our printing, Digigraded in town. They have a case study on our portal showing how they consolidated our spend with over 30 printers so that we don't have to deal with all these printing companies. We deal with them and they manage that tail spend. And we have in the training class, we have video case studies where a diverse supplier bought 2 JCI plants, and you have the owner of the plant the owner of the minority company talking about how he didn't want to do the deal. He had to move from Michigan to Tennessee. And then once he got down there, he saw it was exactly what he needed to do. And then he took out like 8 incumbent suppliers, and then he ended up buying the 2 JCI plants in town. So those stories help people get comfortable with doing deals professionally. Oh, wow, if I do a supplier diversity deal, I'll get recognized and people will know that this is a good thing. That's how we do it.
I just shared something that Julie shared with us in the panelists. There's so many different ways to tell these stories and kind of showcase supplier diversity and integrate it. The 15% pledge, which some of us know already or kind of read the stories about major retailers devoting 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned businesses. We shared the link there. One more question we have in the Q&A. This is for the 20% or so of companies who are on this call right now that have more mature supplier diversity programs. So the question is, for those companies that have mature supplier diversity programs, what are some of the strategies and tactics that they can employ to continue to advance this work that goes beyond meeting diversity spend goals, i.e. incubator programs, strategic partnerships, supporting access to capital for minority businesses, et cetera. Reggie, you can kick off with your response and then we'll have the other panelists respond too.
So what I typed in the chat box was I would highly recommend that they get the $1 Billion Roundtables book, the $1 Billion Roundtable book on best practices.
That he helped write?
That Ralph has a chapter in the book, right? They have sections or chapters on 12 best practices that can advance your supplier diversity program. And they're written from the practitioner's perspective, what they experienced, how it worked. And so you get a variety of recommendations from a variety of industries, from real people who actually are trying to do it or have done it already. I would highly recommend that book. You can go to the BDR's website, billiondollarroundtable.usa, billiondollarroundtableusa.org, billiondollarroundtableusa.org.
And one of the other strategies I would recommend, and this is there's some leadership voids or some gaps throughout America as it relates to opportunities for companies with mature programs. If you don't see something in place, you can be the leader. You can be the one to make that happen. And what I'm alluding to is the industry organizations, the trade associations. There's been a movement, and we've talked to a number of them over the last 6 months. They're trying to figure out supplier diversity, and we've seen some industry groups that are basically saying, we're going to have an industry-wide association. If your industry group is not taking that lead, there's an opportunity for you and your company to say, hey, gang, let's rally around this, to develop our best practices, create some standards. Because one of the issues that we have in supplier diversity is that we haven't created enough standards so we can do apples to apples benchmarking. One company will tell you, well, they spend 30% with minority suppliers. Another company will say, well, we spend 6%. And everybody's playing games with the denominator. We need industry standards, which means we need industry leaders to step up and say, this is how supplier diversity should work in our industry. And then from there, you can do a variety of things, from capacity building to joint ventures to training sessions with MBEs that are industry specific and much more productive.
Sure. I see your head nod, and welcome back, Julie. Listen, we did it. We did a lot in 60 minutes. It is 2:58. So in the chat right now, if you learned something new or you feel more comfortable having this discussion, certainly there's more discussions to come, but this is a good starting point. If you feel that way, let us know in the chat. I'll pass this back over to Julie after having thanked our panelists. You guys are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
We did a lot, and that was a lot of information, really good information. I learned a lot in this time too.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
And I think, based on the depth of information we got today, we really understand that we are just beginning to scratch the surface on this topic. So please rest assured that this is the first of more to come, where we can dig in and, based on where you are in your personal process at your organization or company, I think we're going to be able to tailor that information a little bit more in the future. So we look forward to doing that. And I think, as all of our speakers illustrated today, you can understand why this is such an integral plank in the work that we're doing to make Milwaukee a region of choice. It is really indivisible from the work that we're doing on the talent side, on the education pipeline side. It's really all part of the same overall goal. So thank you again for joining us today. And we will be sending out both a deck from the meeting today, as well as the recording that can be shared throughout your organization. So look for more to come, and thanks everybody for your participation. Have a great afternoon.
Great, thank you. Take care.
I know.